Aloha. This is Amy Bach coming at you from San Francisco. I am so pleased to be joined today by a panel of incredibly knowledgeable and compassionate experts that are part of the United Policyholders team. We've got there's three of us on this program today that are staff members of United Policyholders, and then we have a guest expert with us today. I'm sorry for the circumstances that brought you here and in terms of the wildfire, but we are so glad that we were able to bring this information to you, and we're so grateful to the volunteers like Denise who have a deep knowledge of issues that people are grappling with right now on Maui, and strategies and ideas for getting through the problems. So that's me, a longtime consumer advocate focused on insurance. Denise, decades of professional experience in insurance coverage, claims, and litigation, longtime United Policyholders volunteer and sponsor, and wears a number of hats. She's both an attorney and also a public adjuster, and she's involved with a number of entities and organizations. So she spreads her expertise around, and we're grateful for that. And Annie Barber, who is the United Policyholders Program Liaison. If you're on Maui, you may have met her in the early weeks after the tragic wildfire. She was over there as a representative for our Roadmap to Recovery program. Or you may have met Sherry Peterson, who is our Roadmap to Recovery liaison, and a legal fellow based on Maui, being a conduit for our information expertise and working one-on-one with people, and having office hours, and then coordinating with our partners in the long-term recovery effort on Maui. Thank you so much for your time, gals, working on a Saturday. And for those of you who have come to the center where Sherry is, thank you for making the time to be with us. A reminder that UP is an unusual entity. There's no one quite like us. We are a 501(c)(3). That means we're a nonprofit like the Red Cross. We do not take money from insurance companies to keep our independence. We have a lot of subject matter expertise about what the recovery process looks like after a wildfire, and what are some of the challenges that you may be experiencing, and what kind of strategies and resources are available to help you get through the process, and get to the other side. This is our library for your wildfires. We continue to keep it up to date as best we can. The free online help that we offer is available to you 24/7. And there's lots of recorded webinars and information on our website that you can access by using the search feature. And of course, everything we offer is free. We don't charge for our services. Our services on Maui are being funded by the Maui Community Foundation. And we're very grateful to them for this support that we're getting, to be there with you on this journey. So what are the sources of legal leverage to get a fair insurance settlement? The paper trail and history of how you've cooperated and how your insurer has been handling your claim. Denise, can you just why does it matter what the paper trail looks like?
It matters in the long run. In the short term, people think it doesn't matter. I just have a discussion with the insurance company. They'll help me out. But everything that's not in writing, everything that's not properly documented, didn't happen. So in the event that your carrier hasn't paid you what they actually already owe you, your extensions of coverage as you rebuild and so forth, if it's not documented, it's not papered, and those emails aren't there regarding it, your requests, then there's a potential that it goes to litigation. And if it goes to litigation at that particular point, that's your evidence. That's your evidence. Also, if it's not properly documented, there are many people that are on the islands that are underinsured. And if they're underinsured, if you have someone like a public adjuster or you've worked it yourself and you worked with a contractor and you've properly documented your claim, how much it costs to rebuild, what your personal property was, then you can actually take that and use that in the litigation against HECO for the wildfires.
The
That's
Hawaii Electric Company.
correct. And then you can use that paperwork to recover the additional monies you didn't from the carrier. So it's a two-step prong.
So, okay, so and here today we're really focused on your insurance claim and
Yes,
and getting to
absolutely.
that. Lots of folks have issues with their FEMA aid or their SBA loan, or they have, there's just a range of issues we know out there, from smoke damage remediation to land, title issues and permit issues. We're just going to be going through today, making sure that you get every dime out of that insurance policy, as you go along. So, okay. So going up the chain, meaning, if you're feel like if you have not maxed out on your insurance benefits, which is really the goal here. Um, these are just some basic suggestions that we have. Sorry about that. Going up the chain, at the insurance company, filing a complaint with the Department of Insurance. Sherry, in your experience, and are you able to speak on this? If you unmute, is that get
Yes,
you?
I
Okay.
think so.
What kind of experiences have you been hearing from people about where they file a complaint with the Hawaii DOI? Have some people been getting help? What are you hearing back?
I've had a couple people file complaints with the DOI and they have not gotten any assistance from them.
Okay. So, what we tell people is file that complaint, go on record, but be realistic. It's a small agency. They don't have a lot of staff. And in the real world, a state insurance regulatory agency doesn't have somebody like Denise or me in my former life, that actually has sued insurance companies and knows how, really how to go to the mat on your behalf. That's just not really their role. It's not their job, but it is important to go on record and let them know about the problems that you're having. It's just a matter of being realistic about what they're going to do for you. So
Right. And for each one of my clients, Amy, that has a problem and that when I'm at a standstill and helping someone adjust a loss, I still recommend that they file a Department of Insurance complaint. That way it's there, it's on record.
right.
And in rare instances, it has helped. So.
Yeah. So, and of course, I mean, I shouldn't say of course, this is not something most people know about, but state departments of insurance have the authority and even the obligation to periodically do audits. They call them market conduct exams, and they're supposed to look at how insurance companies have been behaving, after a disaster, for example. So, there are things that state DUIs can do. They have penalties they can assess, but they don't know what's going on out there unless they hear from you. Okay, we're going to keep going here. This is just sort of some of the options for resolving disputes. Actually, let me ask you, Annie. So you're a veteran of the 2017 wildfires that took your home and then many successive disasters since then. In your experience, there's sort of a variety of ways that people get back or get their insurance claims resolved. Do you have any sort of general observations you want to share about these different ways of getting an insurance claim settled?
Yeah. So in our fire, now no, it was 2017, and so every disaster has its own playing field for payouts, correct? Our DOI in California was pretty responsive, and if that didn't move the needle, many people would find a lawyer. It would be expensive. You want to find one that, is going to do hourly, not a percentage, if you can, depending on what you're going after. Mediation was used over and over and over again. I personally, I thought that was problematic because I don't know that you go to mediation and then people think it's resolved and everything's going to be kumbaya, and it isn't always. So you just have to adjust your expectations. And we did have some people who, really fought for tooth and nail for every little bit.
Yeah.
And they utilized any and every resource available to them.
Right. So you heard Annie mention mediation, informal, voluntary, non-binding, pros and cons. The pros, it's inexpensive. If you don't like the result, you can walk away. There's no official mediation program sponsored by the state in on Hawaii, right, Sherry? You don't have anything like what we have in California, where insurers are required by law to participate in a mediation, right? Nothing like that on.
I haven't seen anything like that. Do you
Right.
know, Denise?
In rare instances, insurers are required in HOA situations to to be hailed into mediation, but there's a recent change in the law that says now they changed it from a mandate to may. So there is a little dispute over that. But mediation is a good mediation as an attorney. The perspective is when everyone walks away unhappy, it's a good mediation. So
Right. Okay. Appraisal, I don't, Denise, this is a technical process that usually an individual consumer doesn't understand or know about. Is your firm getting involved in appraisals
we have been
or
invoking
no?
appraisal left and right now.
Okay.
For those of you that have not had a full recovery under your policy, there's a dispute in how much damage was to, or what the quantification of your damage is to, specifically personal property right now, and some dwelling issues. We have been invoking what's called appraisal. Appraisal is a portion of your policy that allows you to, it's almost like I call it a miniature arbitration. You appoint a appraiser on your side, the carrier will appoint appraiser on their side. If the two of them are able to come to an agreement on the differences, then they sign it and it turns into basically an order that you can turn into a judgment. In the event that they can't make the dispute is too polarized and they can't come to an agreement on the award, they will hire an umpire or appoint an umpire, and the umpire will then kind of go through the differences and and help out to create an award. Now, the different carriers are responding differently to this. I know that Liberty Mutual is agreeing to appraisal. Our appraisals have been going very, very smoothly there. We've been appointing somebody, they've been appointing someone. They literally have been coming to agreements and signing awards. But then again, State Farm, unfortunately, I've invoked appraisal probably in about 20 different State Farms, and each one of them has come back saying there's no appraisable issue, claiming that there's a difference in scope of the damages. And then one of my clients, I'm just going to give you a little insight, called in because she was very unhappy. She called in and said, I don't understand. I'm trying to get a result. My personal property was all damaged. And the response from the person at State Farm that answered the phone, not her adjuster, but someone said, oh, you're in Hawaii. We don't go to appraisal in Hawaii. So I'm now trying to work through that and try to figure out
Okay.
how to take care of those clients from State Farm. So,
Because you know darn well that that's wrong.
well, if they have it in their policy,
Right.
don't put it in
Right.
your policy. If you don't
Right.
want to go to
Right.
appraisal in
Right.
Hawaii, don't put it in your policy. So,
Right. And unfortunately, a number of insurers have been starting to take appraisal out, which is frustrating for us because it can be a
it can
very
be good.
much quicker, cost-effective way of resolving a standoff between the property owner and the insurer over the value of their loss. So we have United Policyholders has a project going nationally to try to get everybody on the same page about to preserve the remedy of appraisal because it's for a lot of people, it's a lot better it's cheaper and faster than litigation. Okay. Then there's litigation. Obviously, those of you who are on Maui, you'd have to have been not reading the news or knowing anything to not know that there is a very large lawsuit pending involving the cause of the fires and responsibility and the responsibility of the Hawaii Electric Company. This is just some resources for folks. And that lawsuit, which I think the defendants and Denise can embroider on this a little bit, and or Sherry. There's the electric company. There's also major landowners that have been that are being held responsible for not clearing brush and other ways in which they're their actions contributed to the horrifying destruction. So this is just an example. This is an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief that United Policyholders filed in this case that's pending. So, Denise, can you just give us a super high level for a layperson? What's the lowdown on this lawsuit? I know that there had been negotiations to put together something like a $4 billion fund. But there's a lot of controversy over whether insurers can get their fingers on some of that money. So Denise, where are we with this?
Absolutely. I've been one of the attorneys involved in this. So there is what I call a pseudo settlement. Many of the plaintiffs who represent, many of the attorneys who represent multiple plaintiffs have signed a settlement agreement. This settlement agreement is a tentative settlement agreement that can fall apart at any particular point in time. One of the requirements is that every wrongful death plaintiff must adhere to the settlement. If they decide that they don't want to be part of the settlement, it will basically fold the entire settlement. The settlement will be null and void. In the event that you have a client or I have a client that says, I don't like this settlement, they can opt out of it and pursue their case. We can pursue their case individually. So that's really what's going on with this pot of money at this pseudo settlement. I call it the $4.03 billion.
Okay. So look,
I asked a
we
question.
are well aware that underinsurance is a huge problem for people impacted by these fires.
Right.
And one of the ways that underinsured wildfire survivors have been able to get closer to being made whole is by being part of a lawsuit like this. So, Sherry, if you want to just give us a quick hit on the op-ed, the letter to the editor that you wrote on behalf of United Policyholders, and the perspective that we have put in on this lawsuit.
Well, our perspective basically aligns with the plaintiff's position and lawyers and the issue that's being hotly litigated right now. And that is that the plaintiffs should be made whole or to the extent that they can be in this settlement before the insurance companies are allowed to get any money from it. And that this settlement basically precludes the insurance companies from filing a separate suit to get money because this is all the money that they've taken each of these entities and turned them upside down and pulled their pockets out and and they've shaken them. And so this is all the money that's available to pay the plaintiffs or to pay anybody. And so it's important that the plaintiffs get paid before the insurance companies get any money. The insurance companies, I think, should stand aside, but they're not doing that. They're hotly litigating this. And so I believe it's mid-February that that this issue will be going before the Supreme Court here.
But as Annie was just asking in the chat, if people opt out, Denise, is that going to slow? I mean, you said that could potentially derail the whole deal.
It potentially can, but I don't think it's going to. Really what's going on right now, there's an additional fight going on amongst the plaintiffs. And actually January 29th, we will be beginning a trial between the individual plaintiffs, those that are signed up in a mass tort situation where the example is I have multiple plaintiffs, but each one of them has different damages and I need to prove them up. And then there's a group that's the class action plaintiffs. That's represented by a few attorneys that are doing a class action. And so there is the discussion amongst the attorneys and we couldn't come to an agreement. So there's literally going to be what's called an allocation trial that is scheduled for the 2 weeks beginning January 29th. The individual plaintiffs will present their case because we feel that most of the victims from this fire are represented by them. They have their individual claims. Then you've got a class action sitting there. I'm sure they have people signed up. It's just that it's a whole different scenario. It's a legal difference. So
sorry about that.
And
Yeah, and as
I just
Annie knows, go ahead.
Can I just interject? And a lot of the dispute is over between the class action lawyers and the plaintiff's lawyers themselves, because the class action lawyers are sort of limited in how much they can get or recover in attorney's fees, and they think that it's not fair that the plaintiff's lawyers are getting a percentage. At least that's
Right,
the way that I
right. But
understand it. Yeah.
yes, but by and just to be clear with our audience, so the in many situations, class action attorneys, they don't have they maybe have a few individual clients, but they, for the attorneys like Denise and many of other the other attorneys involved, they have clients and they're trying to, get those individual clients represented. And as Annie knows very well, and I know very well, from being on an oversight committee that has been watching and trying to make sure that that we had so in California, there was a utility that was held to be responsible for a number of large California wildfires. They declared bankruptcy as a result of all the claims that got asserted against them. They were reorganized in the bankruptcy proceeding, and there was a trust created. And instead of getting cash out of the bankrupt utility, because insurers had already gotten the cash, the victims were given what I call IOUs, basically shares of the stock of the utility, of the bankrupt utility. And so over the course of many years, we've learned a lot of lessons the hard way about the limited resources of a utility, particularly if it declares bankruptcy. HECO has not declared bankruptcy, right, Denise?
Correct. They have not, but they've threatened
Right.
it multiple times, which
Mhm.
is exactly why when we came up with the settlement numbers, I think actually the majority of the plaintiff's attorneys decided to agree to the settlement
Right.
on behalf of their
So
client.
we have many years of experience at United Policyholders in the dynamics of when there's a wildfire, people are underinsured and hurting, and there's a lot of their harm that doesn't get compensated by an insurance policy, and therefore people are in need of alternative sources of money. FEMA aid is one of them, SBA loans is another, charitable aid is another. But lawsuits against potentially responsible parties is another very important source of compensation. That brings us to ALE, which is, your temporary living expenses, which generally have been grossly inadequate for people on Maui. So been sitting on this slide for a while we've been talking about what kind of compensation survivors can be hoping for from that settlement, and acknowledging that it's going to be limited, it's not going to make people whole, but it is something, and something is better than nothing. So, are we seeing, Sherry, or Annie, are we seeing insurers voluntarily complying with this kind of idealistic memo? It's an ask from the commissioner that insurers extend the coverage for your temporary rent and all that expense. Are we seeing insurers saying, okay, we will do that? Or are we seeing them say, this is the limit in the policy, talk to the hand?
What we're seeing is this is the limit in the policy, talk to the hand, but I'm still encouraging people to write the letters so that we have that information available to us. I have proposed some changes in the insurance laws here, or United Policyholders is asking for some changes in the laws, and one of them is in disaster situations to allow for more ALE, so we don't run into this situation again.
Yes. And of course, as a result of this problem of ALE being inadequate, United Policyholders has successfully gotten laws changed in California, Oregon, and the state of Colorado to say that this extension that the Hawaii commissioner is asking insurers to make voluntarily is in those three states, it's mandatory now. So in the state of California, your insurer has to give you at least 2 years, 24 months, plus 2 additional 6-month extensions if you establish that you're not able to have got moved back into a replacement home through no fault of your own. So we don't have that on Maui, but we are working to get that to be the law in the state of Hawaii. And thank you, Sherry, for your efforts in that direction. So just a few more things here. The flow of insurance funds, this is how it's supposed to go. That you get these cash advances, and then as you submit proof of expenses you're going to incur, have incurred to replace your dwelling and your contents, and bring your structure up to current building codes, that's how it's supposed to work. And some people are getting negotiated cash outs. These are just references for folks on Hawaii for the rules in your state. Of course, your insurer is supposed to investigate and pay your claim fairly, timely, and in full. And you can find those rules in these citations that we're giving you. I know for those of you who are watching, it's great that there are these rules, and a lot of times you're like, it doesn't seem like everybody's following those rules, and that is the case, and that's why we have lawyer here on the panel, because one of your sources of leverage is the ability to have a policyholder attorney, somebody who specializes in counseling and representing insureds. You're an insured, you're a policyholder. That's why we have Denise here, because that's one of your sources of leverage and a potential remedy. Now, there's lots and lots of laws out there to protect you, but enforcing them is often kind of on you. So it's often, it's up to you to kind of be that squeaky wheel. These are just some of the things that insurance companies are not supposed to do. The most important one is that one at the bottom, right? Attempting to settle a claim for less than the amount to which a reasonable person would have thought they were entitled based on the sales promises that the insurer made. So if you're still mired in a valuation dispute, your insurance company generally owes you what it would cost to replace your home as it was, up to your policy limits. That's the rub for most people. Policy limits are not enough, but at least we want to make sure that you're getting what your policy could give you based on the language, right?
And there's some extensions of coverage that are triggered as you're rebuilding. So be
Right.
well aware of that. You might have gotten your policy limits in a total loss situation, but as you rebuild, permitting, code upgrades, those are extensions of coverage that is money that might be available to you.
Yes, and we're going to get to that in 1 second. Thank you for flagging that. These are just suggestions, sort of reminders. When we tell people it's your assets, you have the biggest stake in making sure that your losses get valued fairly and fully. We're talking about getting second opinions, because very often your adjuster is saying, well, you don't have to do all that homework, because here's our valuation. But we're always here to tell you, get independent opinions, because very often the insurer's calculations are based on unrealistic numbers that are too low. And so these are some of the suggestions for getting that documentation that you need to be able to go back to them and say, no, that was not a fair valuation, right? These are just some sort of things that we know from all the years of work that we've done in wildfire areas, right? That it's so important that you question the insurance adjuster's work, and that you get the help that you need to rebut lowballing in terms of their valuations and their offers, right? This is just very common that we see adjusters not offering full payment for the valuation of your losses. Okay. So now Denise just mentioned that there are additional or other coverages that you may have. And these are important, and they vary widely by policy. But they can give you additional buckets of money. So we're going to talk about those now. And these are just some examples. And Annie, we haven't heard from you in a while. So talk to us about, talk to us about how you see some people succeeding to get more coverage, or hitting a wall if they do or don't have these type of endorsements. And what's an endorsement?
An endorsement is an added note to your policy, that into your legal contract of it might be that you have a collection of something and you need to make sure you're covered on that. Jewelry will have limits, guns, there's all sorts of different things. But the additional in my fire, a lot of people used their contents to bridge the gap. I can't express enough that the FEMA and the SBA needs to be kept open. This is not insurance, but they will wait until your insurance runs out. You need to keep appealing and keep those options open in case you need them. You don't want to close that door too soon. And, in my neighborhood, people used every bucket of money to get back home.
Yes.
You can do the landscaping later.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can-
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The sound went out. Sorry about that, Annie. Thank you. Denise, obviously this is an example of a craptastic policy we wouldn't want to see, but that is a common policy, right? No coverage for fair rental value now, no coverage for ALE. This would be a policy issued by what's called a non-admitted insurer, Lloyd's of London. So let me start with Sherry. Sherry, does this look a little bit like some of what you are seeing from people who you've been counseling, that they have this kind of thin coverage? No ALE, no extensions.
No, most people have some ALE. It's either expressed in a time frame and or it's an amount. Um, most people have a dwelling coverage, and a lot of them have been getting the full amount of that, but they're unaware of the endorsements that they may have to increase that. And that's the same thing with building coverage. And so, and there are a number of insureds that did not know that they could get money to replace their landscaping, how to use their debris removal if they have additional debris removal that needs to be done after the Corps of Engineers has done their work. And then as I think it was as Denise, they also don't understand the difference between actual cash value and replacement value for
right.
their possessions or their personal property. And as Denise said, a lot of people are unaware that they have a code upgrade insurance. Most people have it. I've seen a few policies where they don't have it, but most people do have code and upgrade and are really surprised to find out that that's an extra bucket of money available to them.
Your example here is excellent. I know what policy this is coming from, and I've seen this over and over. It's highlighted. This coverage is an additional insurance.
Right.
That means it's separate and apart and above and beyond your policy limit. This particular company is fighting me tooth and nail on this. They might pay the plants, trees, and shrubs, but they're not paying the rental value and additional living expenses, or they're
Right.
not paying something else above it. They're fighting me tooth and nail on this, saying it is included in the policy limit. And I said, it's in plain English that it's not. So this is going on right now, and there may be some litigation regarding this.
So obviously we know, because we've been doing wildfire recovery now for over 3 decades, that at least 2/3 on average of people who lose their homes in wildfires find themselves significantly underinsured. We have resources on our website to help you understand what your leverage and or your remedies may be. It's a very challenging situation, but there are sources of help, as you're hearing both Denise and Sherry say, in it to either if you are underinsured through no fault of your own. We know a lot of attorneys that are bringing suits against, say, the insurance company, the agent, and the company that generated the replacement valuation estimate that the insurer used to set your limit at the point of sale. Some of those lawsuits are being successful. The problem is that you won't really know about them, and the case law stays kind of favorable to the insurance companies, because when people hire a lawyer and they sue for a remedy for underinsurance, very often those lawsuits settle behind closed doors and there's no record. So Denise, is there anything else we want to say here about holding an insurer responsible for underinsuring your home?
There's not much you can say. Amy, you're absolutely right. I've brought some of these. They're very quick to try to settle. My client might settle under what they were now entitled to under the policy, but they want to sign a confidentiality. So unless we have a good Samaritan that wants to bring a class on something like this. And most people, it's just that they need the money now. You
Yeah.
need to rebuild your home. So I understand that they just don't want to be that person. So
Right. Understood. Understood. That's why this $4 billion settlement is so critically important, that every dollar of it be available to the impacted residents, and that insurers don't get to take that money, a piece of that money, because we know from California that where insurers get to take money out of a settlement that's limited in the first place, that it's really, it is brutal on the survivors who are trying to piece together the money to replace their homes. Okay, so a reminder, please do keep up that paper trail, because it's so important, as we said at the beginning of this, that there be this written record that you've been cooperating the whole time, and giving your insurer access to your information, and that it's not you. These are some of the best practices for negotiation. Annie, if you want to kind of, touch on this bullet point list in terms of, how you've been advising people both on Maui and also, of course, down there in Los Angeles right now, where Annie has been sitting at United Policyholders table at the Disaster Recovery Center, as well as you were there on Maui in the weeks after the wildfires in August of 2023.
Yeah, so best practices really are just treat that person who's your adjuster the same way you would like to be. You want to get what you deserve. You also want to know what you deserve. And so streamlining it into, I know that, state law requires da 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 da, helps. But getting an adjuster who doesn't want to work with you, please climb the ladder, ask for a supervisor, and ask for a new adjuster. There's nothing wrong with that. You're trying to move your claim forward. And if that person is not helping you to do that, then that's a problem. You want to keep documentation of everything, and you want to be very concise. We've had people who wrote, 3-4 page letters. Nobody's going to read that. They don't have the bandwidth to. So this is the problem. Be just really concise. This is the problem. This is how I've been trying to deal with it. This is the result I would like to have and expect to have. And this is what's happening right now.
Thank you. Okay, these are some of the types of professional help. We know at this stage of your claims from the Maui wildfires, a lot of you have already hired professional help. If you're having challenges with your public adjuster or your lawyer, please do use resources on our website for resolving those problems. This is again the reference links for the Hawaii Department of Insurance. As we said at the beginning here, we want you to be realistic in your expectations of what kind of help you're going to get from them, but we do want you to go on record so that there is that they know what's really going on out there. They hear from insurance companies all the time. Insurance companies are always in there, talking to the commissioner and his team. And it's really important that they get a balanced view of the situation, from you, the policyholder who is in the middle of the system looking for it to work for you. A reminder that our website is available to you 24/7, and that our resources are available. So that ends our slide deck, but we have a few more minutes here with our expert panel, and I'd like to give each of them a chance to offer any kind of closing thoughts about any of the topics that we've discussed, on the topic of how do you troubleshoot insurance claim disputes. So I'm going to start with Denise, our lawyer, and see what Denise has to add to what
I
we've
think
already
right
covered.
now we're a year and a half out and from this disaster. And if you're still having problems, have somebody review your policy. have them help you with your buckets of money. Where are your remedies? If you need to go to invoke appraisal, you need to find an attorney, you need to find a public adjuster. I think there are plenty of resources out there, and United Policyholders is probably the best to guide you there. But the fact is, there are still remedies. You've got to look out for a couple of things, though. One is that Hawaii has a statute of limitations. From the insurance policy, it's a little, every state is different on how they do the statute. So in the event that you feel that you've not been paid what you deserve under the policy, I will actually tell you at this particular point, you may want to seek legal help. It's a 2-year statute in Hawaii from the date of loss. So we're talking January 8th, I'm sorry, yeah, August 8th of 2023.
Right.
It's coming up. So you might want to think about consulting someone so that you can preserve your legal rights.
Thank you. Annie, and then Sherry.
Yeah, and as United Policyholders is here to give you the tools, there is a period of time, like Denise was saying, if you get stuck, if you can't handle it, it's too much, you don't know the steps, yeah, reach out and hire someone before that date comes. I also would implore people to really make sure that they file with the Department of Insurance. I have checked into with them a few times, not in the last 6 months, but they have said that they've had very little complaints filed. Squeaky wheels get the grease, and you really need to document those, if not for yourself, this disaster, but for the future.
Thank you, Annie. Sherry, tell us, I know you're still doing office hours and talking to lots of people, working with our recovery partners there on Maui. Any closing thoughts, guidance on troubleshooting insurance claim disputes?
I think if you haven't done so, that you should, if you don't understand everything that's in your policy, United Policyholders is available to provide education on how to read your policy, and I'm doing that one-on-one with individuals. Make sure that you, as everybody has said, that you are communicating with your insurance company in writing with your requests and asking for those asking for written responses in return. And we are starting getting to the point, as Denise said, where we are identifying the insurance companies that are not paying out the claims and that are balking at that. And so we do have some ability to refer individuals to pro bono and lawyers that will charge to go over to advance your claim if you have reached a roadblock with the insurance company and you can't do that yourself anymore.
Thank you, Sherry. Denise, I know that there are laws in place in a couple other states that extend the time that a disaster survivor has to collect their full replacement benefits after they have gotten their depreciated value type check. I know a lot of policies peg it at a year from the date of loss. What are you seeing in the policies that you have been reviewing on Maui?
Most of them are a year, but there are caveats to that 1 year. And it's part of being an advocate for yourself. At 180 days for every one of my clients, I sent out letters asking for extensions of time for that replacement cost. And then what I've been doing is assessing for each. And then the carrier may come back and say, I'm telling them they can't replace their personal property until the house is rebuilt. So they are extending the time, but there are a few carriers that are telling me they're not extending the time. That's a hurdle that we're going through right now. But I am in constant contact, making that argument, putting it on record. You have to extend the time. My house isn't built yet. My client's house isn't built yet. So I think it's advocating for yourself. I think that most of them are listening, and they will bump it a few months out, and they keep bumping it only a few months out. So put it on your calendar, wherever they bump it out to, make sure you write them beforehand and get another bump out.
Okay. So I am so grateful mahalo to Sherry, Denise, Annie, Amy behind the screen there, for the deep expertise that we have brought today. We didn't even touch on the issues that standing homeowners are going through with proper cleaning of smoke damage, the proper restoration of your home to its pre-loss condition as close as possible, and all the fights that we know people are embroiled in with their insurers over what the insurer owes for those remediation costs. There's a lot of really rock solid information on our website on that topic that I encourage you to check out and digest. So you go in, you use our search feature, you put in smoke damage, and you will get to our whole smoke restoration guide and a lot of the information that we offer on making your best case and getting the right help to be able to move back into a safe and livable home. And we are very mindful of the challenges that people are encountering in Maui. There are many of them, but we also are mindful that there are some amazing resources that are available to you, including Sherry and our program and our partners. So we encourage you to please take advantage of those resources. If you missed today's program, the recording will be posted on our website along with the slide deck by probably Monday, and you'll be able to watch it and see anything that you missed. So I really want to thank you for your time. Those of you who tuned in or who are watching it after today's recording, but I most especially want to thank my panel of experts because I know you gals really know your stuff, and I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with our viewers and with those who came to the center today. That's going to be a wrap on today's Roadmap to Recovery webinar. Thank you so much for being with us. If you have additional questions, you can either shoot them to Sherry, who is there on the island, or you can put them in our Ask an Expert program. I'm sorry, Ask an Expert forum, and just be patient with us. We have gotten a really huge influx of questions because of the LA wildfires. So we've had to close the forum down for a short period of time. So really, your best bet is to reach out to Sherry during her office hours, and you can find out what those hours are by going onto our Maui Wildfires library and poking around on there. So with that, I want to thank everybody again. Mahalo for your time. Stay safe. We're rooting for your recovery, and we're so proud to be able to offer resources to support you through this challenging journey. Thank you.